You're joining us now. Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday morning series. Kristin Snowden is joining today. Always, always grateful to have you. I know we used to do this a lot more often. Now it's every other month, so it feels like it's forever since last time I saw you. So what do you have for us today?
Always trying to bring something new and relevant to the crowd. But welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kristin Snowden, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California and also a certified life coach. And my goal of doing these webinars is to help individuals and couples navigate the most extreme relational crises. These are crises that have been brought upon by uncovering an unknown addiction, sex, love, porn addiction, drug addiction, infidelity, and also just living with and loving a person who you found is doing a lot of gaslighting, double life living, and you just are so confused about what the healthiest next steps are as you figure out how to move through this earth-shattering and shocking experience in your life. So, there are so many nuanced terms. This crisis hits, and so many betrayed partners start seeking out answers to what the heck is going on here. I had no idea my partner it could do the things that he or she's done. And I didn't even realize humans do the things that he or she has done or that I'm finding out. And so we go to the internet, we go to communities, and we start noticing all these nuanced terms popping up in the world of sex, love, porn addiction recovery. Terms like betrayal trauma, edging, acting out behaviors, sobriety plans, just to name a few. And in fact, 2 months ago, I did a webinar on a term called post-traumatic embitterment disorder. That was kind of like a new term. And as overwhelming as it seems that you now have to adopt and learn about these terms around trauma healing and addiction recovery, it's really important that we start putting words and language to what's been going on in your life the past several years or decades. So I want you to hang in there with me for another kind of newish term, but it really isn't. It's been around and people change up the meaning of it. So let's talk about it. And that is the term around carried shame, or also what we call partner carried shame. When I kind of looked up the history of these terms, we found that Pia Melody popped up. She talks a lot about it, carried shame being developed when you're a child living in an abusive environment. But today we're going to apply it to how betrayed partners will absorb their partner's shame-filled life. Um, so I'm going to help you define it, provide you examples of how it might manifest in your relationship, and then offer you tools to develop resiliency from absorbing your partner's shame so that you can move through your own healing and get your life and self-worth back again. Um, Now, if you follow me and you've listened to many of my webinars, you know that I talk a lot about shame. I am certified in Brene Brown's Daring Way. I run groups around her during Greatly material and Rising Strong material. I have a strong appreciation for how shame drives so many of our behaviors. I feel like shame is at the core of why we do what we do or why we don't behave in certain ways, how we show up with others, or also sometimes how we don't show up. So I think as part of your healing journey, it's necessary that you really get to know what your shame stories are. And understanding this topic around the difference between your own shame stories that have been developed due to your childhood traumas or just experiences in life versus the carried shame that has been kind of projected onto you by living with and loving an addict. Understanding those two different things can really help you move through this traumatic experience and onto the other side. So, carried shame is an additional let me start over. Exploring carried shame is an additional layer to our shame discovery journey. And carried shame most often applies to people who have been raised in or are living in an abusive environment. And in these circumstances, I'm referring to a betrayed partner of sex, love, and porn addiction. Because again, if you've watched my other webinars, you know that just being in a relationship with an addict because they are lying, sneaking around, manipulating, gaslighting, that whether or not you knew what they were doing, that is a traumatizing environment to live in. And the carried shame occurs when the shame that your addict partner is experiencing and struggling with, because obviously they're acting out and they're going against their values and goals. It's how the pain that they are constantly living with and drenched in, how it's projected on to the betrayed partner. And often it's unknown. We don't, it's very intangible. Shame is very insidious and we're unsure about when it's happening or how we're experiencing it. And it can get kind of erroneously intertwined with our general pain and discomfort. So it's a topic that you're going to hear this today, but you'll listen to it over and over again, and it'll still be kind of hard for you to grab hold of it and figure out, okay, how is this showing up in my life? How is it applicable to my life? Betrayed partners, pain and trauma is so multi-layered and so nuanced. There's first this immediate crisis when you uncover all these lies, the double life. Who is this person that I'm married to? What are the next safe steps? How do I keep me and my family safe? Are there more lies? Who else is lying to me? Is everybody this scary and evil? There's these survival kind of instincts that jump in during this immediate crisis. And then there's woven into that experience, there's an intermingling of extreme anger and resentment and sadness and grieving of how could my partner do this to me? And am I pathetic for wanting to even stay in this relationship and keep working on it and moving towards it? But underneath it all, enhancing all of that pain and grief and suffering are deep-seated personal shame stories and then betrayed partner carried shame stories of why was I not enough? What's wrong with me that my partner would do this to me? And other devastating stories that, again, are very quiet and insidious and subconscious and hard to pull out of just the general anger and pain and fear that you're experiencing because of the betrayal. So part of the healing process is really diving into this painful stuff, putting a name to it, and exploring with your sponsor or qualified therapist or a safe betrayed partners group in order to develop a resiliency and practice around it. I'll reiterate, these shame voices or these shame stories that we have going on are often quiet, subconscious, and hard to separate out from the pain that we're already drowning in. So knowing what is your shame brought on from your own childhood, wounds, your stories, versus the carried shame that has been thrust upon you by living with an addict can be a game changer in the healing process. So let's dive into this topic of carried shame. Let's start generally with the broad definition or understanding of what shame is. Again, I have so many videos on this topic of shame. I would encourage you to just listen to them all. There's a lot of other people who talk about it. Brene Brown is someone who's pretty famous for the way she covers shame because it's in a very palatable, understandable way. But we all have shame. So not just addicts have shame. Every human who has the capacity to have feelings, to want to be loved, to want to be in connection with other people, as long as we have that strong driving force that is biological in us. It's neurobiological. So meaning we have feel good hormones that come in that says, yes, this feels good, you want this. And then really yucky, uncomfortable hormones and feelings that come in when we are not in connection. So as long as we have a drive to be loved, to be seen, to be connected, to be validated, we will always have an equal and opposite force pushing back against us that's saying, well, are you really worthy of it? Are you sure that there's not things about you that are so broken and wrong that you don't get this, that you're going to lose it? It's that fear, this deep shame is an intensely painful experience that says that we are too flawed or broken in some way in order to be worthy of love and connection. Um, we all have it. And as Brene Brown says, the only people who don't experience it are those who lack the capacity for empathy and human connection. So as long as we're wired for love, we will have shame kind of quietly creep in underneath us. Let me tell you too, there's two big social affects that we experience because again, we are wired to move around this world in a very social way. We are not meant to be lone, um, creatures that live alone and exist alone. And I talk a lot about why that's the case if you want to get into that. But two big social affects that get confusing are shame and guilt. So let's talk for a second about that. Guilt is I made a bad choice. I did bad things, and it is a effective and productive feedback loop system that our body uses. Like, so something happens and I made bad choices and I feel gross about it because my body's telling me I need to correct this behavior, right? So let's say I'm hurried and overwhelmed about dropping my kids off at school and I'm, stressed. And so I bite their heads off and I overreact or I yell at them about something. Guilt is I need to slow down, take some deep breaths, time manage more, wake up earlier, prepare better for this because this is just, I need to do better in these incidences. That is a productive feedback loop system that will help me pivot and change the way I connect with others and I relate to this world. Shame is I am the worst mom on earth. I am screwing up my children on an hourly basis. And who could love somebody that loses her temper the way that she loses her temper? That is like a dark, endless abyss of sadness and horribleness that no one can crawl their way out of. It's just a general, Brene Brown calls it a shame slime. This slime that you just like, you get dunked in and you're sitting there and it's gross and terrible. And it just continues your pain and suffering as a human being. So guilt is I made a bad choice and I need to pivot. So my body's giving me a painful feedback loop system that's saying do better. And then shame is just I am bad, which is just this like ocean of darkness that isn't giving a specific feedback loop on it. It causes us to paralyze ourselves and do nothing to, it's what drives addiction and abuse and lying and all those other behaviors that we're going to talk about. Why do we have shame then? This is my personal belief, is that I personally believe that our body, when we are trying to be these vulnerable, very breakable, fragile species living through this world in a social way, there's so many elements that I can't control. I can't control geopolitical events. I can't control natural disasters. I can't control how people perceive me, um, although I'll try my best. And our brain does not like that. Our brain likes black and white, good or bad. So I feel like shame exists because our brain is just trying to really quickly write a story that's like, hey, all that crazy stuff out there, you have control over it. If you were prettier, smarter, a better mom, made more money, skinnier, younger, all the things, if I was all of those things, then none of these bad, scary, hurtful, bad things would happen to you. And you would continue to live in connection and be loved and be validated, which is what I really want. And so shame is kind of has good intentions. It means for you to be loved and to be in connection, but all it does is just kind of drench you with this horrible, painful experience. So we all have that. And I have a bunch of, again, free videos on my channel, stuff on my website for you to dig into your own personal shame stories, shame triggers, exercises. But today we're talking about additional shame. On top of our own shame stories, what we have is carried shame. Because carried shame will add a whole new layer to the fact that just any given day, a person is dealing with basic shame stories of value and worth. But now, those who are betrayed partners, those who are living with an addict who operates from so much extreme shame. I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm unworthy, no one can meet my needs. That you almost absorb their additional shame by osmosis, unconsciously, usually. Either because your addict makes subtle or not so subtle suggestions that you are unworthy, that you are to blame, that you are maybe too flawed. That's why I don't want to have sex with you, or because you nag me too much, and that you are the one causing the problem. But of course, the irony is that this whole time, as you're accepting the blame for what's going on in this relationship and why it's so confusing and why things are just so strange, is that you find out too late that your partner has been going out and doing all these things behind your back, living a double life for all those years. So not only does a betrayed partner have to unravel their years of childhood type shame stories, childhood wounds, but they also have to take the time to unravel the carried shame that was thrust upon them by living with an addict who is constantly drowning in his or her own shame stories and just kind of vomiting it onto you. And I'll give you some more examples to bring this into your own life in a moment. So let's talk about the role of shame in the addiction cycle. Uh, Addicts often carry core shame, and it fuels their obsessive compulsive behaviors in an effort to get out the deeply uncomfortable space of feeling the shame, right? So a lot of addicts, it's a misnomer to think that they're not feeling, because I know that people go, oh, they're sociopaths, they're narcissists, they don't have emotion. But it's actually the reverse is true. They feel so much, and it's so overwhelming, and it's so bad that they constantly have to numb out, escape, project it and throw it and blame it on somebody else, seek out intensity and madness and chaos in order to distract from the shame of their own life, to be completely non-present with the world and their body so they are not feeling that shame. There is like an addiction cycle that addicts go through, and it is always driven by a sense of shame and sometimes guilt, but guilt's productive. If they felt the guilt, they would change their behavior, but mainly it's just shame, which is, they're preoccupied and constantly fantasizing about acting out. And so there's the buildup. And then there's the ritual of leading up to the acting out behavior. In the SPAA and SLAA worlds, they'll call it the edging. Then they will act out and do the behavior, drink the alcohol, do the drugs, do the acting out type of thing that they do. And then they will enter into a despair. I broke promises. Oh, it didn't actually feel as good as I thought it was going to feel. And now there's consequences. Now I have to lie about it. I swear I'm never going to do it again. And then there's that shame cycle that just keeps you there until, again, you eventually get back to the preoccupation, the fantasy, the ritualization, acting out behaviors. I swear I'll never do it again. I'm terrible. I'm horrible. And betrayed partners don't know what's going on, so they don't realize that their addict partner is living in this constant state behind their back, but it's coming out in their behavior and how they view the world and what they say to the world. So the addictions, there's 4 basic stories. This is from Pat Carnes' material. These 4 core beliefs that he feels like sex addicts will operate out of. One is the basic shame-filled story that we all have, which is, I am a bad or unworthy person. The other one is, no one would love me as I am. So if they really knew me, if they really knew the things that I've done, the choices I've made, the way I have gone against my promises, values, everything, they would not love me. So I better do everything in my power to keep it a secret. The other core belief is, no one will meet my needs or nurture me. So no one has the ability to help me meet my needs. And that includes, by the way, myself. I don't know how to meet my needs. So then, therefore, the other core belief is, sex or these acting out rituals or edging behaviors or intensity seeking behaviors are my most important need, my most important focus on how to feel alive, to get away from the pain of all those other core beliefs, to get away from those stories. And that is my primary focus. And then here's where the complex story deepens. The addict's shame is not simply the shame of their own behaviors, but the shame of not living up to their own ideals, morals, standards, or promises. They know that they are hurting the people they love. But instead of facing that painful truth, and again, the guilt of it changing their behaviors and causing them to do better now that they know better, they will instead have the shame drive them into doubling down on their defense mechanisms, their rationalizing, their entitlement, their manipulation, their projecting and blaming onto their partner and other people. And of course, the betrayed partner is the recipient of that maddening, chaotic cycle. So the carried shame, let's talk about this. This type of shame is unique in that it doesn't belong to the betrayed partner that is just drenched in it, that's drowning in it. Rather, it's been projected onto them by their addict partner. And over time, these betrayed partners will begin to internalize it, have a distorted sense of self-worth, a view of the world, and it'll compound the pain of their betrayal. The betrayed partner doesn't just suffer from the trauma of being betrayed by their trusted loved one and their own shame of, like, why wasn't I enough, or what's wrong with me, but they also annoyingly absorb the emotional burden of their partner's shame, which goes back to that core list of, oh, I must also be bad and unworthy. No one can love me as I am. There must be something broken in me. No one can meet my needs. I'm just, apparently I'm too needy, or I'm too emotional, or I'm too messed up. And so betrayed partners carried shame is often taking on the same core belief systems of what their sex, love, porn addict partner tends to have. Plus, shame is a powerful, contagious emotion. Shame will always beget more shame. Shame is like a snowball rolling down a hill. You become this magnetic energy for more shame when you're in a dark, shameful state. For an addict, shame will also manifest as self-loathing and an idea that they're fundamentally flawed and unworthy. And then as a defense mechanism, they'll push the shame outward, whether it's unconscious or conscious, we never know. Sometimes it's both, onto those closest to them. The addicted person feels ashamed of their behavior, but may be unable to face the reality of their addiction or the hurt that they have caused. And instead of taking responsibility, right, instead of letting the guilt change their behavior, they will redirect the shame back onto their partner through various emotional and manipulative tactics. These include the terms that we talk about all the time, which is gaslighting, blame shifting, denial, minimization of their own behaviors. Then their partner will become confused, question their worth, question their intuition, and then also start shifting and altering their perception of reality. So basically, the definition of carried shame is when the emotional burden of one's own shame is consciously or unconsciously transferred on to another person. Now, Pia Melody and a few other people will talk about how the partner will pick up shame that doesn't belong to them. But I have a hard time with that term because like we all have shame and none of it belongs to us. It's all a distortion. But I just think there's an importance to understand the stories that your partner has directly or indirectly said to you or when they're talking about other people, and you've kind of unconsciously absorbed them into your own story. And we'll talk about that more. So let's talk about the examples. How does carried shame occur? One of the most common things that I hear in my work with betrayed partners and working with the addicts in recovery is what I like to call the Debbie Downer effect. It's this idea that when you are lying, sneaking around, gaslighting, manipulating everybody, like you don't have a real intimate connection with anybody. They're all kind of there for your own personal gain or use. You will tend to have a very negative view of the world. And often, a lot of these type of addicts will be constantly pointing that out, complaining, noting how everyone cheats or everyone is flirtatious or inappropriate, or pointing out the flaws in other people, how no one shows up on time, everyone's flaky, everyone's a hypocrite. People only do things for ulterior motives. There's no such thing as doing things out of the goodness of your heart. That's all a lie. And just kind of this constant obsession with the negativity of the world. And the cost of that to the betrayed partner is that they will often say, before I was with my partner or for many years, at the beginning of our relationship before it got really bad, I was a pretty positive person. I saw the good in the world. I loved my friends who were even flawed, or I enjoyed travel and hobbies, but they were beaten down by their partner's constant complaining of like, well, why do you do that? That's weird. Or why do you want to travel? That's so strange. Like, like what a waste of money. Or their partner's obsession. Usually it's the Debbie Downer effect happens when a lot of the addict partners are the performers and perfectionists. They're the ones who are going to escape their shame by perfecting everything and putting up this performance of being perfect. And so they are just constantly putting up that front. And if anyone ever falls short of that, there's severe punishment that they either put on themselves or other people. And so betrayed partners will say, I now have this extreme cynicism or judgmentalness that I don't feel like I had before. That could be partly due because of carried shame. Another example is blame shifting or reversals. So because the addict feels inadequate, broken, unlovable, because those are just the core beliefs that he or she operates in all day, but they can't tolerate or identify those yucky constant states of being, they will instead project them onto their partner. And again, it's sometimes in a very subtle way, but it's a regular way of just pushing it onto somebody else. So here's some examples of things that addict partners will say to others, including their betrayed partner. Well, you weren't meeting my needs. If you were more sexual or adventurous, then attentive, you stopped having sex with me after the kids were born and you were just obsessed with serving the kids and you stopped meeting my needs. You're too controlling or jealous or dramatic. You're too sensitive. I was just kidding. You're too, let's see, if you're more sexually available. And this obviously causes the betrayed partners to start saying, like, well, did I stop having sex with him or her? Or God, I must be a bad partner. And yeah, I guess, am I too sensitive? And then what happens is they're afraid to state their needs. They're afraid to ask for things that they need to feel safe. They don't feel like they're worthy or that it would be productive for them to say, hey, this isn't working for me. Can we talk about this? I don't like when you come home late. You've been going on all these work trips all the time. What's going on here? All these block phone calls on your cell phone or you're on your computer all the time. They don't feel like they have a safe space to talk about that because their addict partner, who's in total shame and defense mode, will just slime them with like, oh my God, stop controlling me. Stop trying to ask me to do, you ask for too much. So it just ends up with them walking away feeling like they're the problem. Another example is the gaslighting and reality distorting. So the addict will hide, minimize, or deny their compulsive behavior in order to avoid the shame. So the betrayed partner will point out, this, I'm uncomfortable with this person that you work with. I don't like that you do X, Y, and Z. Um, is something weird going on? And the partner, the addict partner, will instead say, well, that never happened. You're imagining things. You're crazy or nagging or controlling, or you're obsessed with me. Stop, focus on your own stuff, focus on your own recovery. Stop being obsessed with what I'm doing. And so the impact on the partner is that they will continue to feel confused, invalidated, doubt themselves. They'll lose trust in their own perceptions. They'll lose trust in what feels safe or reasonable. And they'll also feel a great deal more shame of, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I do have weird suspicions. What's wrong with me? Maybe our sex life is just fine and I just don't know how it's supposed to go. Another example is moral superiority or religious gaslighting. So the addict will compartmentalize their behaviors and separate them out from the values that they espouse, right? They don't practice their values, they preach their values. And boy, do they preach it. It's those who are often acting out have to make religion certain and rules very black and white, and anyone who's doing this is bad and horrible. Or they'll project it onto their partner and say, oh, well, you're not forgiving me like a good partner should. Or God says that you're supposed to love people unconditionally, or you made marital vows to me, how dare you? And you're being judgmental and you're not showing me grace, how dare you? And so again, that's that carried shame, that's shame sliming of a partner when they're feeling unsafe or unheard or feeling like, oh my God, my partner's not in recovery and cleaning up and fixing it. We're in the same cycle of insanity. They feel shame for feeling anger or hurt, for wanting to leave the relationship, for feeling like they're not loyal or they're not hanging in there or they're not supporting their partner's recovery the right way. There's a pressure to be good or be a good partner. Another example, I'm almost done, is emotional withholding and detachment. So because the addict will feel like I'm not worthy of intimacy myself, I will be shut down emotionally because I can't tolerate yucky emotions. I shut down all emotions. And the cost of that is that I show up in the relationship as very cold, avoidant, stonewall, or maybe I just went and acted out and I did a bunch of terrible things and I have to come home and see the face of my children and my wife and know that I broke all my vows. And so the cost is I'll be short, or I'll pick a fight, or I'll be overly critical to manage the fact that I know the truth. I know what I've done, but the betrayed partner and the family will be like, why is he so angry? What just happened? Like, I thought we had a great day or a great weekend or a great trip. And then now all of a sudden my partner is really angry and disgruntled and yelling at me. Like, what's going on here? That's a great example of the carried shame that betrayed partners had to unknowingly deal with. And so the partner again will feel invalidated, invisible, rejected, unwanted, start feeling like maybe they're too needy, maybe they want too much, maybe they're unlovable. Um, and they will have an extreme desire to have emotional closeness, be able to have hard conversations about what's going on in their heart and mind, but know that their addict partner has no capacity to sit there with it, to have empathy or compassion. Another example is rage or defensiveness when they're confronted. So the addict, understandably, will feel exposed and vulnerable, and they will destroy you for it. So you're attacking me. You always want to fight. You'll never get over this. You're always so negative. It's exhausting. That was like a year ago. When are you going to stop bringing it up? I'm going to meetings. What else do you want? I'm seeing a therapist. You told me to. Why? Like, okay, I'm doing what you want. Get over it. And the impact is that it shuts the partner down. It makes them tiptoe around conflict. They feel shame for having normal feelings of feeling unsafe or feeling like things aren't going the right way. And they continue to feel self-abandoned. They continue to feel abandoned, but also self-abandoned what's going on in their own heart and mind in order to keep the peace. There's also examples of victimhood and manipulation, where the shame is flipped into self-pity as a defense. So you don't understand me. You don't understand my trauma. I'm trying and you're never satisfied. You don't see how much shame or pain I'm in. And then the betrayed partner will feel guilty for setting boundaries. They'll feel like they need to caretake more, or they need to minimize their own pain because I'm not appropriately understanding my addict's pain. And they will take on the full emotional responsibility and the function of being the emotionally intelligent person in the relationship, because the addict has no tolerance for hard pain, emotional pain. Another example is normalizing or minimizing these harmful behaviors. So the addict partner saying, oh, everyone watches porn. It's just fantasy. Oh, that person meant nothing to me. It was just a transaction. It's just some alcohol. It's just, I do it to take the edge off every once in a while. It was only this many times. Get over it. It's a constant state of minimizing what they've done and the harm that they've caused. And the betrayed partner will feel like their pain is not legitimized, it's not validated. Um, then another example is comparison and devaluation. So the addict will have unresolved insecurity or need for external validation. So they will either cut their betrayed partner down all the time or completely neglect ever complimenting them, because I want them to feel down at the level where I am. So I don't want to tell them they're a great parent or partner or compliment their looks or who they are. And then at the same time, the addict will also maybe talk about how attractive other people are or how great other people. So they'll idealize these kind of non-human people, right? People they don't have relationships with, and idealize pornography or other people that they meet in the acting out type world. So idealize these people they have no relationships with, but also have no ability to be emotional and connected with the people they are in relationship with. And how does carried shame manifest in the betrayed partners? It leaves betrayed partners in a constant state of confusion. They will feel overly responsible for their addict's behavior or for their recovery. They will doubt constantly their own worth, their right to help themselves feel safe or to keep their family safe, their right to ask for needs to be met. They'll have a constant pervasive sense of being inadequate and a constant state of hypervigilance around, second guessing their every interaction, seeking proof of worthiness, trying to fix their partner's addiction. All right, so let's talk about the healing part. How do we heal carried shame? First things first is you got to name it. Brene Brown will say, shame only grows in secrecy and judgment. And so, though it's the darkest, most painful stories in our life, we have to get to that therapist or trusted close friends or, betrayed partners groups or sponsors of a 12-step program and identify and speak that shame. Because often it is met with another person saying, me too, you're not alone. And again, I talk a lot more about that in my other shame groups. Shame is in the non-language part of your brain. And the more you talk about it, the more time you spend journaling on it, exploring it, understanding where that shame story came from, where you got it from, who said what to make you think that. That can really help bring it to your prefrontal cortex and help you kind of realize the distorted thinking around it. Michelle Mays is a great writer and orator on these topics, and she wrote a book called The Betrayal Bind. And she suggests taking the time to think about the ways you have allowed your partner's behavior to affect how you think and feel about yourself. This is the carried shame concept. The change in your self-perception that results from someone else's behaviors, either completely outside the relationship or towards you. So she writes a couple suggestions or things to kind of journal on that I love, which is I carry shame around my partner's lying and deceit by believing I am a fool for trusting them. I carry shame around my spouse choosing to have sex with the affair partner or acting out sexually by believing I am not beautiful or sexy enough for my partner to remain faithful to me. I carry shame around my partner's addiction by believing there's something wrong with me that caused me to marry an addict. And I carry shame around my partner's cheating by feeling embarrassed about my sexual preferences and expression. I love that she says that it's just getting carried shame is about understanding how your self-perception was shaped by your partner's words and behavior. Um, do your own shame work. I do Daring Greatly groups and Rising Strong groups. I actually have a Life Anonymous group that's starting in about a month. This is as part of this work. It's a 10-week group, and as part of it, we dive into the shame topic. A lot of other things around like grief and boundary setting and other stuff, healing trauma wounds, stuff like that. But we dive into this subject. So please find a group, find a great therapist, and start sorting this stuff out. I also think parts work is really great for that. Identify inside you these wounded children, these shame stories that you carry around. You'll find they're common. You have, there's a top 5 that pop up and can kind of come at the core of all your pain and suffering. And you're like, oh, there's that story that I'm a crappy mom. Hi, nice to see you again. What's going on here? Where does that story come from? And just be there. Why is it getting triggered right now? Or the overfunctioner, the one that has to take over everything and take everyone's needs into account because I'm going to run on that treadmill and that's the way I manage the fact that my partner is an addict and everything's falling apart. Doing some boundaries work around what's their shame and my shame, trauma, evidence-based treatment such as EMDR, IFS, internal family systems, somatic experiencing. I have some journaling prompts, and I also have some really great exercises free on my website, kristinsnowden.com, that are like exploring shame triggers, shame shields, etc. And reconnect with your truth and identity, affirm your worthiness. Have healthy outlets for your anger and resentment, which is completely understandable and normal. Develop shame resiliency practices, which again, I go over that in these shame groups. And look more up on shame videos. Join a group. Join my Life Anonymous group. We have about 7 spots left. Join my Betrayed Partners group. We talk a lot too about this shame stuff. If not my groups, there's Seeking Integrity groups. There's lots of other groups on there, but don't walk through this alone. Shame does not usually get sorted out in an isolated way. You have to kind of talk it out with a group of other people who have suffered and struggled in a similar way and can understand that. And that is it.
So much good. I just want to a couple of things when you're talking about all the different ways, things, can come out with the gaslighting, blame shifting. It isn't like, an addict partner is only going to use one of those. It's, like there can be this whole combination or dance of those of, oh, that one didn't work. I'm going to go to the next one. So like, don't, don't minimize if something else is happening. And I love, the religious, like I hear all the time where people pull things out of, out and use just that one little snippet to lay, things on people, taken out of context, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I've shared this before, but like the shame, and I know where it comes from, but I have been in situations where something happened and I go, "Oh, you're such an idiot." And I go, "Your friend Kristin Snowden is going to go, that's not, it's not the right message. It's like, that wasn't my finest move, and I can take ownership of, okay, welcome to humanity, but that doesn't automatically make me the biggest piece of junk on the planet, and having the ability. So I think what you're talking about, all of those journaling things, all of those tools to recognize when it's showing up, what's it trying to do for you, trying to protect you, whatever, you talked about being mom, it's trying to make you a better mom so you can do, and it doesn't work, but it's trying, and so identifying what's happening and finding a different path of going, like, okay, wasn't my finest move as a mom, but and like, my children are still alive, we're going to be okay. So it shifts things. But we have questions. I want to get to these. So I'm the addict. We had a full disclosure yesterday. Ooh, lots of follow up on questions. We postponed the poly for now. I'll answer the questions and take the poly, but uh, how do we plan for repair from here? I'm assuming, I'm gonna, like, to me, this is you should have a whole plan with your qualified professionals. There should have been, like, this is what the process is going to be. I'm like, don't you agree, Kristin? Like, you would know what the process is for the next steps.
Yeah, I mean, if they've done a full disclosure, theoretically, they have the support and engagement of qualified therapists. And so, I mean, usually there is a standard. You do the disclosure, and then there's, the response to the disclosure and how they're going to repair post disclosure. And then they move forward, continuing to do their own recovery and their own betrayed partner support. And when the time is right, they will engage in couples repair work as well. So that tends to be the process. It's kind of a mix of each individual work where the addict learns how to be in recovery, stay in recovery, deal with their uncomfortable feelings in a healthy way. And the betrayed partner sorts through all these multi layers of trauma healing, shame resiliency skills, grief processing, and just learning what the heck is this that we're dealing with? What is this giant mountain that we're trying to scale?
Yeah. Lean into your qualified professional. Find out what their plan is, and time frame for you. What are the top 5 things you would advise as a woman prepares for disclosure? I'm assuming the woman is the betrayed partner. So,
Yeah. Um, the same stuff I say for every person is you can't do this alone. So find your group. You should have a well-established community of people who have suffered and struggled in a similar way. So they don't judge. They can give you empathy and compassion, and they can just sit there and tolerate this in-between state that you're going to be in. One minute when you're like, I'm filing for divorce, and the next minute, oh no, I want to try to work things out. So you need to have your people locked in. I'd say you should have a well-qualified therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma, betrayal, partners of addicts, recovery kind of thing. And I'm a big believer in trauma work. Is you're going to have a very regulated nervous system because everything is scary, everything is uncertain, there's no consistency, nothing your nervous system can kind of stabilize around. So you have to fight really hard. And I do some webinars on like the polyvagal theory, what betrayal trauma does to your body, and exercises to help you with down regulation skills. I like EMDR, I like neurofeedback, brain spotting, all those kind of things are good at down regulating. A lot of like Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score, he talks a lot about mind-body connection. Trauma is very disconnecting from your body. So, he's a believer of like Tai Chi because it's a lot of brain and body connection, yoga, dancing, music. Those are all connective things of moving your body through the pain and discomfort.
My biggest thing, I'm going to just go with one, have a qualified professional to make sure that you've got the support that you need to go through this. This is not a do it yourself. Things can go badly. You want to make sure you have someone who knows what they're doing. And then all the other things, Kristin said. I've been very confused and feel gaslighted by an answer from last week's webinar about sex addicts not being rapists, and wondering if you could clarify the definition. Okay, I'm sorry. This is hard because this is out of context. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, and this is actually interesting because I gave this a lot of thought, as we were going on, and particularly with Angela's webinar last week or on Monday night, and I was thinking, I honestly, for the betrayed partner, I felt so bad because I thought, would I want to go around and go, here's my husband, the rapist, and the negative that you're holding. You get to pick, I'm not even going to bother, you pick if you want to hold that. My sadness for you is I don't feel that there's a place of healing. If this is all we're going to be is he's a rapist. I've been raped. I think it's what is your goal? You absolutely can hold on to that for years, decades, um, uh, and I don't think we need to argue. We have limited time and we've got some questions. You get to pick. You get to move forward however you choose to do that. So, I am the addict and betrayer. Thank you for this webinar. The carried shame behaviors resonate so much with everything I put my partner through. I am still currently dealing with a lot of shame. How can she even live with a person like me? There is no hope for us. I hurt her way too much. I am working the steps and talking about it in meetings, but it's really hard.
Well, I can already tell that you've done work. To be saying this in a public setting already shows that A, you've connected with it, identified, and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, is speaking it out. Keep going to these groups, keep saying it out loud, but also shame begets more shame. So I say this in all my shame related webinars, which is that shame is this kind of prosecution that's always trying to convict you of being a crappy human, unworthy of love and belonging. So it is constantly searching for evidence for that to be true. And so I say to the addict and betrayer that right now you are drowning in shame because you have so much evidence of all the lying, sneaking around, hurting that you have done and the pain you've caused others. But every day that you are sober, every day that you are sharing your stories in these 12-step meetings, every day you are choosing healthier choices, you are trying to make amends, you are trying to be patient with your partner who's so angry and traumatized and hurt, and you're continuing to just be better now that you know better. The shame dissipates ever so slightly because the prosecution has lost its evidence to convict you that you're a crappy human. And that's why they say in the 12-step meetings, addicts can't lie. Like even white lies, because they are already up to their eyeballs in evidence of why they're unworthy of love and belonging, that they cannot even spare one tiny white lie, which would then be the evidence that their internal shame state needs to convict them of being a horrible human. So just be pristine in all your behavior. When you lie or make an error, repair it quickly. You do all those things that the 12 steps is so great at pushing and reiterating to everybody, and the shame will dissipate.
And one of the best antidotes is gratitude. You have a partner who's still with you. Like, gosh, what an opportunity. You can work on yourself and be a person of integrity. Shame is self-centered. Dr. Rob talks about that all the time because I'm all just focused on me. You're not focusing on your partner, and you're not going, wow, I'm going to do what I need to do in this moment. You can't make anything unhappen, like with the previous one too. Nothing, you can make unhappen. Here's where you are now, and how do I move forward and take those steps? And Kristen talked about it earlier, and the visual of having you're anchored down by shame, and you will get stuck in the mire, or you can go, yes, all of that happened. I haven't behaved in a way that is esteemable, but in this moment, I'm I'm abstinent. I'm working towards doing things different, and I'm going to focus on others. One of the things with 12 step is we have to be available for others, because when we're self-centered and self-focused, we can't make any progress. So getting out of ourselves is the antidote. But honestly, gratitude. Scott co-authored Life Anonymous with Kristen, and he and I do webinars together. But he has shared, he does a list of 10 things he's grateful for before he even gets out of bed. That starts your day in a different way, because you're going like, okay, I have reasons to be grateful. In shame, you're going like, oh, I call it kind of the Eeyore. Oh, I'm so like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
No, I know one
And,
of my betrayed partners says so you're saying shame is the excuse. Shame's the excuse that addicts use about why they never clean up their act. And I was like,
yeah,
wow,
yeah,
you're kind of
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Like that is
absolutely.
it's the stuckness that I get stuck in that
Yes.
stops me from ever ascending into a better human being.
Well, and you talked about it with betrayed partners who feel like, oh, they feel so bad. Like they feel like they have to caretake. And I'm like, no, you get to caretake and this person, if they want to grow into a person who is esteemable, if they want to be a person who's living in recovery, we do the work. And the 12 steps, like lean into those. I say this all the time. Steps 4 through 9 are the housekeeping steps. Those are the ones where you put all that stuff and you clean through it. You don't just wallow in it. You're making progress, and you're tidying things up. And then you can move forward in a different way. It's very freeing. So you have an opportunity. I'm just gonna, like, you have an opportunity, and I would encourage you, what can I choose? I use often for myself, I'm going to do the next right thing. What's the next right thing? And feeling sorry for myself, like, I know we're almost at, I got a quick share. There was one time, and I had a righteous, it really was. I gave myself 1 hour to be, feel sorry for myself. I have to limit how sorry I can, because that's a bad place for me to go. And then I went and put a funny movie on, and then I was fine. I allowed myself 1 hour. I gave myself that latitude, but yeah, I cannot wallow in that. That's a horrible place for me to be. What can this be? Partner is so defensive towards others and against me. This feels like betrayal, not only with women, but every person in his life. I feel like the enemy and the less important person. When I got his back in my ways, in many ways, and then on top, he is telling me how much other people helped him. It's so hurtful. That man has taken so much from me. You were talking about this earlier, where not, they'll minimize a partner and then say, oh,
Yes.
these other people are so amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it's that true. It's that true, like I cannot lift you up, because if I lift you up, then you're already going to be way higher than I'm afraid. If you're up here, then you will realize what a piece of crap I am and that you should not be with me. I mean, remember, these are the core beliefs that if you really knew me, you would not love me. Um, and so that also will manifest in me needing to either always stop you from being complimented. So I will never compliment you because that will raise you up. But then I also have to criticize you to keep you down. But other people, I don't worry about them leaving me. I can idealize anybody outside my vulnerability circle. So I can say, oh, they're so smart, or she's such an amazing singer, or what a great actor, or I really respect this person spiritually or whatever, because I don't need to be in relationship with them. So I can put them up on a pedestal. But no, I can never put you up on a pedestal because I am so insecure and so afraid of losing you that I got to keep you down.
Which is like, it's insanity. I mean, like think about what you just said. It's like, oh yeah, I really care about you, so therefore I'm going to squish you, and you know
Yeah.
give honor to all of these people who I don't even really know. Like, I know facades of other people, but you, who I'm in a relationship with, I need to keep you, I need to keep you pushed down. Is it
and
like
move them.
addiction is just, it's so painful. So for that person that was just going like, I'm struggling so much with shame, choose differently. So, do you have time for one more quick one? Hopefully.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know how to accept the fact that, or be in a relationship with this type of guy. He pretended and performed really well, I may add, to be attracted to internal qualities over external qualities. Also, he had no interest at all in porn or even looking at objectifying for 20 years. The gaslighting and manipulation are so intricately weaved into everything. It's too much to accept that this is who he is, knowing how much I cannot be with that type of guy due to preferences and previous experience. So he just forced me to entrap me in a marriage with one. I can't believe it.
Yeah, these are all very common and normal stories. I would
Hmm.
encourage you to keep speaking these out, either by journaling or talking to a therapist or being in group and speaking these out. And even the act of you speaking these stories out will help you move forward and through them. They won't last forever. They will cause you to start moving into some kind of path. Whether you stay or go, call it quits, hang in there, keep speaking on this topic.
So, and great question, great topic. I have pages of notes again, as usual. So, and thank you. And I have the one you did last time with the embitterment, like that has been really resonating, and I've pointed a number of people towards that too. So if you missed that one, check it out. Our previously recorded webinars are on the website. I did post Kristin's website in the chat as well. So join us again. This will be posted on the website later today. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kristin. Great to see
Bye.
you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.